What's up, wrestling fans? Welcome to episode number 315 of the Smark Out Moment Smack Talk podcast. I'm your host, as always, Tony Mango, and this is the Hot Tags of the Week, where I'll be breaking down some of the current events, rumors, news, gossip, and anything else that happened over the past couple of days in the world of professional wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call that kind of thing. Before we get started, a little reminder, make sure that you chime in on your opinions of all these different kind of topics that we're going to be talking about in the comment section below. That way, as we're talking about this, you can kind of, timestamp what you're going through and not have to backtrack and remember what your thoughts were when we were talking about stuff. It's a little bit easier that way, right? But let's just dive into it. Kind of want to get this out of the way a little bit. Going to be a little bit quicker episode than I've been having recently because we don't really have too much to talk about for this week. We have one big story, essentially, and the rest of them are not so much. So we're going to get out the lesser ones out of the way real fast. One of them being that Rob Van Dam has apparently, we don't know 100% for sure about this, but this seems to be the case as far as like any reputable source says, he has been disqualified from all future in-ring competition in WWE. And this is due to multiple concussions that he has had, and the fact that this has also caused some kind of sight impairment. And if you know anything about what WWE has been going through the past couple of years, concussions are a big no-no. They stay away from concussions as much as they possibly can, and that's kind of the situation that's going on with Daniel Bryan right now, and a couple other people as well. Christian, I think, had fallen victim to the same kind of thing, and we have like neck problems and stuff when it comes to Sting, but that was another factor that kind of got into that, and plenty of people have been dealing with concussions being the thing that makes them no longer able to compete. But if you add in that it's also causing some visual problems, then no wonder RVD is disqualified. It's something that I didn't expect to really hear an announcement about this because he has not been in WWE for a couple of years, and there didn't seem to really be any indicator that he was going to be returning anytime soon, but he was always, at the very least, somebody who kind of was hovering around, and you got to look at like the fact that Paul Heyman's still in WWE and that they're tight, and that RVD has had some good spots in WWE in the past. He was somebody that I, every year, was sort of expecting as a potential Royal Rumble candidate. Now that this report comes out, I can pretty much 100% rule him out. I didn't really think that he was going to be that reputable to go for this year, but if you're going to be taking part of the Royal Rumble predictions contest, you don't bother putting RVD down there. It's probably not going to end up happening. We have a little bit of a report that two more people, possibly more at this point, are going to be leaving Impact Wrestling soon, and they're pretty big names, especially for Impact. Bobby Lashley and EC3, Ethan Carter III, two people that are perpetually champions, and some of the main talent that they've got going on there, they're not going to be wrestling for Impact Wrestling anytime soon. So both of them, of course, same as always, no real indication of whether or not WWE is going to pick them up, or alternatively, if they're going to be going to Ring of Honor, or maybe Lashley will focus a little bit more on MMA. Maybe EC3 will just kind of tour around. Maybe he'll go to New Japan. But I would love to see, at the very least, maybe they bring him back as Derek Bateman. Maybe they purchase the rights or whatever to Ethan Carter III. I highly doubt that would be the case. They probably would just bring him back as Derek Bateman. But I would love to see him go into NXT. I think that he could be the top guy in NXT for a long while. And on top of that, I think that he could come up to the main roster, get that like Intercontinental title win, move up to the main roster's main event scene too. I think that he really has a ton of talent that they never tapped into. Lashley, on the other hand, I think that his time's well past him, and I don't see that much of an upside to bringing him back. But if he does come back, he would go straight to the main roster. They wouldn't put him in NXT, that's for sure. And I would hope that they wouldn't give him a title run, because I would rather see him be in the mid-card. I think that that's a better spot for him if that's the case. But really, I kind of want both of them back, even though I don't really like Lashley all that much, and it wouldn't be like somebody that I really felt like they were missing out on. EC3, definitely. I definitely want him to come back. Lashley, though, you give me a choice whether or not I'm going to say, yeah, why not try to bring him back? Why not try to pair him up with some different people here and there? Maybe you can get a good match out of some of the people. I don't know. I haven't been following his matches over the past couple of years, but maybe he's gotten better. Maybe he's gotten better on the mic too. I don't know. Something to look forward to in the future, though. It's a possibility both of them could go nowhere, or they could come to WWE. And whether or not they come to WWE, they'll still probably be doing some stuff. So if you're a fan of them, you'll find them somewhere. Let's talk about Ride Along. Tonight was the most recent episode called Path to Providence because, of course, they were going to Providence. That makes sense. And it featured the Fashion Police as well as Rusev and Lana. And my normal quick little thing here of see it and skip it, see it. This was one of my favorite episodes that they've done in a while. Everybody was kind of weird and funny, particularly Fandango. I thought that he was great. A couple highlights if you want to be aware of it, if you don't get a chance to watch it or you kind of just don't want to really sit through the whole thing. Well, Rusev and Fandango shirtless the whole time was a little bit of a funny joke. Rusev talking to Lana about some of the weird things in their relationship, like having sex in the back of a car, and Lana just completely doesn't remember it because she must have been just really shit-faced. She also said, I have pronunciation problems. I can't pronunciate things. There you go. Proved it right. Fandango says he wants to put a boot on human beings for fashion violations. Like he put a boot on a car. And there was also this little joke where he's talking about how he hates Kofi Kingston. And the idea being that when you meet somebody and you go, oh, I really like that guy, that he felt the total opposite. From the moment he met Kofi, he knew that he would hate him. Jokingly, of course, you get the idea that he probably is just like super good friends with Kofi and stuff. But I thought that the whole thing was hilarious, and I would definitely recommend checking that out. Obviously, not going to tell you everything that happens because that would ruin every joke. But yeah, go ahead and check it out if you get a chance. It's quick, 20 minutes, whatever the case may be. And it's a good little bit of extra supplemental content throughout the week. If you are looking for more WWE content, then pay attention to this next story because WWE is thinking about bringing back something that they've done in the past, which is global warming. Of course, it's a little play on global warming. If you are unfamiliar with what it was a grand tour that they did in Australia in the early 2000 eras. I think it was like 2002, 2003, something like that. Offhand, I can't remember for sure. But they had done this before, and they're thinking about bringing it back. Australia again, 2018. This time around, it might be a pay-per-view. It might be a live tour. It might be some kind of like piggybacking off of what they had done with Starrcade. Because I think that the way that they looked at Starrcade, they gave it a name, and it apparently worked. Now, the name Starrcade means more than global warming, that's for sure. So that could be a, scenario where maybe there's more stock in the Starrcade, and if you brought back like Hog Wild, then you compare that to bringing back King of the Ring, then of course you're going to get a little bit more attention for King of the Ring than Hog Wild. But it's sort of something that, like, if you're going to Australia and you want to give it some kind of extra little thing like that, then why not, right? The WrestleMania tour seems a little bit more important. The Heat Wave tour for SummerSlam seems a little bit more important. If we're going to be doing something for Australia, global warming, that makes sense. But the specifics of this say that it could potentially be an actual pay-per-view itself. And if you've been following what the pay-per-view schedule is for 2018, there are some spots that are open that they could be slotting in another pay-per-view. They have not announced a No Mercy pay-per-view, a Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, or I think there was like one or two other ones too, and they do have the ability to slot something in there. So if they are thinking about doing some kind of tour into Australia and maybe doing a pay-per-view based off of that, and global warming replaces Great Balls of Fire, that seems pretty good to me. I think that would be great. And I always have been saying for years that they should utilize these other names that they've got in the past. If they're in the Washington, D.C. area, do Capital Punishment again. That's a cool name. Capital Punishment works. They just had one random pay-per-view for that, and they shouldn't just make sure that they go there every single year for a pay-per-view. That would be kind of ridiculous. But if you are in the area, you have a live event in D.C. and nowhere else, are you going to be returning to D.C. the rest of the year? Call that the Capital Punishment live event. Why not? What's the problem? Who cares if it's not like it's different if you go with like the Elimination Chamber, then you got to set up the Elimination Chamber. No, it's capital punishment. All you got to do is put a little bit of branding on there, pay some schmuck to do a couple of little copy and paste deals with your previous logo, and you got it done. Hell, fucking pay me to do it. Give me $20 and I'll do it for you. You know what I mean? So I think that is a good idea. Global Warning is a decent enough name. I think it's actually a pretty cool name. I like it quite a bit. And Australian fans, I'm sure, would dig it too. So more of this kind of stuff. More like seasons beatings and more, the heat wave stuff and all that. Like, I dig it. Bring back the WCW things, bring back the ECW things, whatever you got your control over, whatever you own, go ahead and do it. But last thing for us to talk about here, not on the positive side of things, completely on the negative side of things, is to talk about Rich Swann. If you've been following this story, there's been a couple of little changes here and there, but it seems pretty standard the way that it is. It seems what the breakdown is that Rich Swann was suspended indefinitely, which is never a good sign for somebody's career. He was arrested, and the scenario that seems to have been painted for why he was arrested was Sue Young, his wife, indie wrestler. We talked about her on the Porn Star or Superstar section of the Play the Game last week. Go ahead and check that out if you haven't done that already. She was in the car with him. He was critiquing her match. They got into an argument. She left the vehicle. The specifics behind that seem a little wonky. Some say she jumped out. Some say she waited until it was like basically stopped to get out. You never really know who to trust in that kind of a thing. And he either forcibly grabbed her to put her back into the car or yelled and screamed and she got back in with no grabbing. Seems a little bit like it can't be both, but who do you trust? Same kind of thing. And the rationality was that she had her phone and that had the GPS and he needed her to go back into the car because he needed to use the GPS, which I'm pretty sure that he has a phone so he could use his GPS. But if you're talking about a whole domestic violence, domestic abuse kind of a situation, chances are these two get into arguments all the time, and chances are they're probably both wrong. It's probably that they argue and they're not good for each other, and they've got a toxic enough relationship that he probably has anger issues, and she probably either continues to be around him despite it, or she has anger issues herself, and they just sort of clash, and it turns into a problem, and this is probably something that they deal with all the time. That's the sad truth of the majority of these kind of situations. But that's completely speculation on my part, and there's absolutely nothing that I know about the situation, so I'm just reading into it the way that I can read into it, so don't take that as fact or anything. Take it with a huge grain of salt. But Rich Swann, in any scenario, picked the absolute worst time to get into trouble, because being suspended indefinitely essentially means they're waiting to see if they should fire you. He had his match with Drew Gulak this week that was scheduled, where one of them would have gotten a title match against Enzo Amore. You would think that it would be at the Royal Rumble. It might not be. They haven't really clarified that yet. But Drew Gulak has been building up this idea of him versus Enzo, and Swann might not have won, but I was going into this assuming that Swann was going to win. And even though Swann wouldn't have won that title from Enzo, it's still an extra little bonus. It's still a boost to your career. And now they had to get rid of that. They had to replace him with Cedric Alexander. Thankfully, they could do just a fatal 4-way second chance thing, and that didn't really make it seem too awkward. They pretty much smoothed that over. But it's really a bad time for Rich Swann. And you know what? With Hideo Itami coming in, and the idea that they could bring up people like Aleister Black from NXT, Swann could be released pretty soon. I would not be shocked if that's the case. But if they find out that he wasn't necessarily at fault, then maybe he goes back to normal. We've seen instances before where a problem like this wasn't the end of somebody's career. You've got some different parallels here. You got Jerry Lawler's and you've got Adam Rose's, and it could go one way or another. Either way, this isn't a good thing for him. Even if he is cleared of all damaging reports, it's still a black mark on his career. And more than likely, he probably is at fault, and more than likely, he's going to get fired. So I am going to be creating a little template of Rich Swann being released. I'm going to put that in my little file next to my Neville one, because my Neville one has not panned out yet. And at some point, who knows if that's going to or not, but it's a possibility. And I think I'm even more confident that Rich Swann is going to be released now than I am in Neville. And of course, I don't condone anything as far as any kind of domestic violence and stuff. Nobody should in any scenario. If a couple is not good for each other, they should split. And that's the easiest thing in the world to think of. But of course, it's hard for people in that scenario. And you got to kind of hope above everything else, even when it comes to like, if you're a Rich Swann fan, you got to hope that if this is some kind of an actual issue, that it doesn't get worse. And whether that means firing Rich Swann and the two of them see marriage counseling or something like that, or it means he gets his thing sorted out and she gets her stuff sorted out and he stays on the roster. The most important thing of all isn't Rich Swann's career. It's their whole like relationship and such, and the fact that they're two human beings. So that takes priority. But WWE is a company and they don't need this kind of shit. So they very, very, very easily can just go, you know what? Fuck you, Rich. You're going to put a little bit of a stank on us, and we don't really like it. So I would not be shocked if next week one of the hot tags is Rich Swann released. And if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, then don't say that I guaranteed it, but it's definitely a possibility. So I want to know what you guys have to say about these different topics. What do you think about Rich Swann in particular? Do you think that WWE should just fire him? Do you think that they should be waiting a little bit longer? How would you approach the situation like that? What do you think about Global Warning? Should that be a pay-per-view? Should it be a live tour? Should they just nix the idea whole entirely? If you watched Ride Along, tell me your thoughts about that. Where would you like to see EC3 and Bobby Lashley go if they do go to WWE? Should they go to NXT? Should they go to the main roster? Would you rather see him on ROH, etc., etc.? And for the hell of it, with the Rob Van Dam stuff, tell me your favorite Rob Van Dam story. Whether it's a match they really liked, a promo that he cut, or maybe just the fact that Dace always kept giving him a 5 for 5-star frog splash in our Superstar scores or something like that. Whatever the case may be, drop your comments in the comment section below on YouTube. If you're listening to this on iTunes and Stitcher, drop them in the comments on the page on smarkoutmoment.com itself. And if you want to be aware of the next couple of things that we're going to be doing on here, do what you should always be doing here. Hit that subscribe button on the YouTube channel and ring the bell for notifications. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter at smarkoutmoment, and the website itself, of course, because the next couple of things we've got coming up, we've got the predictions and the post show for Clash of Champions coming up Wednesday afternoon or so, Wednesday night. Not too sure about the predictions, but of course the post show is coming up Sunday night. Next week after that, for episode 316, we've got the December mailbag, because that's the only time I can slot it in. So send in those mailbag questions. I know that some of you have already. Thank you for sending those in. And those who haven't yet, go ahead and send them in as soon as you possibly can. The sooner the better. And then on top of that, start working on your Smark Out Moment 2017 awards list, because that is going to be coming up the week after that. Hopefully, I'm going to be recording that on the 22nd or the 23rd or the 24th. More than likely, I'm going to be shooting for the 23rd and get me a little bit of time to edit it. And then on the 27th, that's my goal, is to post it then. But maybe I'll have to wait a little bit longer. I don't know. We'll see. Not in any scenario, those things are coming up. Pay attention to the website and more for all those things. And then we'll start rolling in 2018 with the one to watch, the future endeavors forecast, and all the other kind of goodies that we're going to be coming up with that. So I want to just thank you all for listening to this, everybody. This has been another Smark Out Moment, and I'm being counted out.